Hi, y'all. It's Brigitte Cutshall with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Cindy Benezra. She is an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and an author of a book called Under the Orange Blossoms, which was released last year in 2022. Can you say hi, Cindy?
Hi, thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time and how we got connected. And I love to have authors on. And my understanding is that you originally intended on writing a cookbook, but then somehow it turned into a memoir. Can you
Mhm.
explain what happened, how that pivoted?
So, I am a sexual abuse survivor
Okay.
and have dealt with a lot of emotional abuse and physical abuse. And this happened to me when I was from 5 to 10. And I have gone through this crazy journey of trying to heal myself, or put back those pieces ever since. And now I'm in my older years. And my daughter and I own an event company. And I have been always really big on entertaining. And I've always wanted to write a cookbook. I have multinational family, Mexican and German. And I thought, I've traveled all over the world. And I thought, I'm going to write like these fabulous recipes with this great blended family and some really good cuisine in our family. And I'm kind of almost geared towards food. I like wake up and think about what am I going to eat next and, just the whole thing. So when I finally felt brave enough to, okay, I'm going to write this cookbook, um, I write little notes down. And so I was going through my recipes. And as I was going through my recipes, I realized that they were starting to trigger me because I was reflecting back on that memory or what happened at that time. And when I was opening different books, different cookbooks, little pieces of notes, and admiring my child handwriting on them. One came down to Mrs. Anderson's grilled cheese sandwich, and I remember I was just a little girl, and at that time I'd run away, like every kid when they're really unhappy with their parents, and I'd run away to the neighbor's house, and she would make me a grilled cheese sandwich and give me a glass of 7 Up. And it just started to open up just more of this information of like my childhood. So I couldn't go forward. So I started to write down notes like, okay, this is what happened to me. And so what I ended up doing to get through the day of going through my recipes is I ended up having 5 notebooks in front of me. And one was um, about the sexual abuse and the physical abuse and the emotional abuse. I didn't really share that much. I mean, it wasn't hidden, but it's not cocktail worthy. Let's just say that we just don't come out and say things like that. So I did have that, and then I noticed that I have a special needs son, and I had a lot of grief and anxiety. Um, Loss, and I that was another notebook, and then one was completely on recipes and entertaining. So I did have that, but it kind of took me through the different stages of life, of the emotional parts that we have in life. And I guess it is a formula, it is a recipe, it's a recipe to life. And I did also one on just what were tools and things that I learned or I overcame, or what were like aha pieces that I was able to apply from other experiences. So that was another book. And from it, I remember putting my hand over the page, over the different notebooks and thinking like, wow, if you live a long time, you are blessed to have all these different experiences, and they make up this recipe of you. And when I was holding it, I thought, which one carries the most weight? And I thought, uh, weight. And I put my hand over the one where actually it was with my son, the grief and the loss. And I thought that was just the hardest. And I thought, which one carries the most shame, and what do I talk about the least? And I put my hand over under the orange blossoms, which is what I wrote about. And I thought, oh, that one. And I thought, which one's the most fun? And I thought, oh, of course, the recipes and blending, like entertaining tips. And I thought, which one needs to be shared more? And I went and I chose the part that carried shame for me. And I thought I felt that these are things that probably other people carry shame and kind of hold you back. So I wrote about that one. I felt that that's not talked about, and that there's so many other people in this world, because the statistics are 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys, and those are only reported cases. So I thought, now that's something. I'm going to start with that.
That's an amazing story, and I like your analogy of how we are a recipe of our life.
Mm.
And I mean, that is a great analogy, and I'm sorry you had to deal with that, but at the same time, you got it out of you. You know what I'm saying? You got it on paper, and not everybody is brave like you to actually make something like this public in a book, especially. But we all can learn from that, and I think that's the value of sharing your story like this. We can learn from it, and that's just when you mentioned it started, you were like 5, and was it in I guess the same location, the house? You know what I'm talking about. I didn't know if you moved around. I think you were in the military as a military child, I should say, or am I wrong?
Oh, a lot of people think that. My
Sorry.
dad that's okay. My dad was an engineer, and he was um, would work a lot of times overseas on oil refineries, that type of thing, on the job site. And so we would move with him, and the families were all located. It was like a compound, very much so, a mix with different. I think we often lived in an American compound with a lot of people from the UK.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that. Did you write a lot when you're young? I'm just thinking, did you like to share, or were you sharing stories when you were younger? I was just curious because I like to do that, and I didn't know if you were into that. Sorry,
I,
my dog is barking.
oh, that's all good. Sounds of life. Um, so I'm a dyslexic, actually. So that's why I never thought I would write. I always had a hard time spelling, and always had challenges with math. And so I didn't know if it was dyscalculia, or if it was just, I didn't know what it was. But what I found out, that through trauma, these were, because it was in the early onset of my development, through trauma, that I had a hard time grasping these concepts. Because later on, once I was in college, I was like, well, how could you go from not being able to just get simple arithmetic to just getting instantly algebra because you have a calculator? And then as things unfolded, then I realized, I thought, gosh, I was really traumatized as a kid. Mm.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, you've come up with some great stories, and then just how you've learned from it. That is, I mentioned this on another podcast. We aren't born with resilience, but we develop it being dealing with trauma like that. Not necessarily trauma for everybody, but you have to deal with this to be stronger as a person. And I think I'm just amazed that I don't know how I would be if I had dealt with this. And did you tell anybody that when you were being abused at all, when this was happening, or did you suppress that?
I just have to answer the first, you
Sorry.
were just say it. No, I find it really interesting that you said that, because I say the same thing that you say. When I hear stories about other people, I go, oh, I could never do that. Or "Oh, I would never be able to do that." And it's something about resilience, being a resilient person. I think we all are, we just never think we can.
Right.
And I really do believe, when push came to shove, everybody finds a way through it. And we become something where we don't even recognize Superman, Superwoman, and we still look back and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe I got through that. Or you watch something traumatic happen to somebody else, and you might, save their child or rush in there, where you just kind of go, I don't even know, was that me? I think we all have that resilient part to ourselves. We just don't believe we do. Yeah.
Right. Right. You believed in yourself.
Mhm.
It's hard to, for me to understand what you had to deal with for 5 years. And I mean, it's just amazing. And I'm not going to throw out the trauma, but I'm sure writing about this, I'm assuming it was therapeutic for you. I
Oh,
just
I
didn't know if you had.
love this question. I hope listeners out there don't take up writing through trauma, or writing your traumatic events through and then writing them down, because that is something that I don't recommend. It is
Right,
so traumatizing.
right,
So that actually to me was the hardest thing to do, to go back and rewrite all the trauma. You get triggered again. And it was almost like I had lived it again, and I was having nightmares. And eventually my husband said, why are you doing this? And I kept on saying, I'm doing this, I'm sharing this so that somebody else could recognize, or hopefully will recognize, that they're not alone. Because when I was a kid, I searched for a book that showed me that somebody got through a tough time through any form of trauma, or anything that traumatized them. It could be whatever, it could be a small thing or a big thing. And I was looking for hope. And that's kind of the reason I thought, well, I need to show somebody, you know, maybe that 1 out of 6 or that 1 out of 4, that you can make it through on the other side. I never believed that I would be successful, be a functioning adult. I just didn't have any examples of that.
right.
I never really thought that I would be able to find a loophole through this dyslexia that was just trauma that happened in that childhood. So I just didn't have a lot of faith. And when I was looking at books, I just couldn't find the right book without being traumatized, listening to somebody else's story. And when I was writing through this, it's different than journal. I used to journal as a kid. I used to just write notes and just get it out there on a piece of paper and then just throw it away. But I think writing, you really have to picture, like, what does the room look like? What were the sounds in the background?
Yeah.
How was I feeling, and where was the feeling coming from, and what was that sensation? So I think writers really have to dig deep in that and try to articulate an interesting way so that you could experience this, the same sort of feeling, but being mindful not to traumatize your reader. So it was really hard to write that way, and it took me forever. I had to actually sit down with a trauma therapist and go over it so that I wouldn't traumatize a reader, so
That's a
that
good,
anybody could read it and go, oh, that's a way out.
that's a good point, to have someone else review it who understands what you deal with. And
Mm.
did you have an editor? I mean, I didn't know if the editor had a background in that as well, because editors are real important to help get your story. I love the idea that you had a trauma specialist go through this with you.
Yeah, she was and that part was therapeutic, but it really did bring me completely back through the loop. And I was kind of surprised that, and disappointed that I thought that everything was healed and perfect. But I realized, like, just being a human, having a belly button, that no matter how much healing we've done, if you go back into it, into real depths, you can get triggered and experience a lot of that. I had one bout of dissociation, and I thought, oh, like, do I need to do this again? And I kept on saying, yes, yes, do it for somebody else.
Right, that's a good point. Another thing you brought up, I like the word hope, because I find that to be positive. You do have to acknowledge something that's bad, but hope will help you look at there's end in sight. And I actually have a hope sign in my family room that I had that would light up when I was going through like had cancer treatments because I needed that to have some hope. And it's it's something that again, my mother had to deal, like I said, she was a psychologist before we got on the call. I told you that she had to deal with patients like this too. I shouldn't say patients, but she had to talk to a lot of women who had gone through this. So that my mom was helping people too in that regard. And I think that going through all this, your resilience and being stronger, did it help create did it affect your relationships? I'm assuming it helped you have healthier relationships, right?
I think it did. I found that I don't think I had a whole lot of boundaries, or my boundaries were very wishy-washy. They were like, I was afraid to stand up for myself, but like vocalize it, like, no, 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 that's not going to work for me, or that's a very good friend of mine. Like, for example, if somebody else was just bad mouthing a really good friend of mine, I'm like, no, 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 they're a good friend of mine. And well, that's, you could have your opinion, but I still like them. I'm going to continue my relationship with them. Or just having like my own true thoughts. I think when you have been taken down to so many emotional levels, you forget how to use your voice and your heart together and really sync those up into power, into your empowerment. And I think that was like a huge part of like, no, no, no. And I noticed that you may not resonate with everybody if you find that empowerment, but that's okay. There's somebody for you, and you will resonate with people who most likely have a lot of boundaries and empowerment, a little bit spicier conversations, but that's okay. You know, we have those around politics, and it's okay to have them around your personal politics of voicing yourself and being who you are.
I like the boundary analogy because that's important too. It depends on your. I probably have. I don't know if I have a lot of boundaries or not. It just depends on the situation, business versus personal, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of take it. And so you had mentioned earlier the business that you have with your daughter. I think that is a good relationship. Does she, you know, did you start this at yourself or you start it together? I'm just curious.
Well, actually, I bribed her to every good mom does. She was away for 9 years and studying, and she went abroad. And to get her back here, I bribed her. I said, "Hi, honey. So if you ever come back into the Seattle area, we'll start a business together." And she was like, "Really, Mom?" Because she was studying to be an event planner, and she was going all over, and she had different territories. And I was entertaining when she was over, and she just said, "Gosh, Mom, like you're good at this," or because we were talking about a concept, a creative concept. And I said, "Well, if you come back, we'll start a business." And so she did. I just thought, oh, bribery gets you everywhere with your children.
But it was a good bribe, right? It was
Yes.
it's but then you have this healthy relationship with her and you have this you're learning from each other. She's learning from you and you're learning from her and you're out there. I love the fact that you're so positive and you're entertaining other people, right? And I
Mm,
think that we need that,
we
right? We
do.
just need we do need that. And I like again what you're doing. So for those that are listening, what are some takeaways that you want to give them? I'm just curious, you know, based on if they know someone who is going back to the sexual abuse, if they're dealing with it or they know someone, what is some people don't ask for help, like you had mentioned. So what do you recommend the first step they should do?
I want to say that, I mean, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse. I think there's
Right.
any form of
Trauma, yeah.
yeah, any form of trauma, any form of it could be emotional abuse. It could be just something traumatic that happened where it just you're feeling stuck in that moment. Like I'm sure you could think of multiple things, but it's facing something that you don't like and you can't shake. And whatever that is, it could be huge or it could be very minute, but that's trauma where you can't move past it. And I do believe that you will find a way to move through it if you choose to. And I think everything's about choices. If you want to choose, there's a willingness and then there's a choice to move through it. So if you do choose to go through that, if you recognize, first of all, it's a job, you're taking on a job, it's work, and it comes in stages. Like nothing great happens instantly. So it's there's stages, and you have to, it's like a muscle. You work that muscle out for a while, and then you go back and you keep on working that muscle. And then it develops to the stage that you want to get it to. And I think that's the way trauma, it feels for me, very, very much like I'm working a muscle, like the muscle of my heart and my heart and soul and the muscle of my head, to get through that process. And some people, it takes a lifetime, and some people, it's a shorter span of time. But I do believe if you I did a lot of work where I didn't have in my teens any therapy. So I found a lot of things that just kind of resonated to me. I did a lot of mantra work. I found a lot of inspirational quotes. And I'd write those quotes down. I'd stick them on my mirrors. I would say them over until I felt something that it shifted. And I thought, yeah, I think that means something to me. I'd brush my teeth. I'd say things like a quick little mantra that I wrote, and I'd say it 20 times, and I would go to the bathroom and I would say it 20 more times. And you have no idea how many times you go to the bathroom to wash your hands. Um, what was the other thing? I also did a lot of breath work. I mean, this might not be something for you, but I didn't know how to slow down, and I would just practice breathing and being present. I felt that a lot of times when I'm vibrating and I'm traumatized, I don't feel grounded. So I would practice on breathing and feeling rooted to the ground, walking without my socks in the grass, and just being part of nature and finding nature to kind of make me realize that there was something greater than me, and that whatever I'm going through, there's always more. And so I just sat down there and I really connect to nature. You could even open up a window so that you feel the difference in temperature, and look at it with an open eye, like the beauty of something. I read a lot. I also exercised a lot. I think that was like a physical purge. And these are all things that you don't have to go to a gym for. These are things that life offers us right away. Journaling, that's that works for you. I felt that it was just quick little words, and I would tear it up or poke holes in it when I was a teenager. There's let's see here. Other than those are inexpensive things, but what I would highly recommend is if you have trauma, finding a trauma therapist. I could not afford a trauma therapist. There was a time I was homeless, and there's a lot of people who work on a sliding scale fee. So there's a lot of resources. We also have the internet, which I didn't have the internet way back in my day. You and check your resources there too, but there's a lot of great resources, people, and I think more people are willing to share and be open to sharing what they did. And you could always reach out to me. I have a blog. It's called Cindy Talks, cindytalks.com. And reach out to me. I have a lot of information there. I have some videos, and I respond back. I have a newsletter, share all podcasts like this there too.
Okay, that's cool. It's very helpful to hear from someone like you, and the simple things that you can do, like the meditation and breathing. And I'm a strong believer in being in the moment and being outside. And that's one of the reasons I always say I love dogs, because they remind you You got to walk them and they're going to sniff and stop, and it's okay.
Right.
And
Right.
they, to me, I've always I found joy in nature for some reason. So maybe I never really thought about it, but her was helping me deal with crazy stuff. But you got to listen to your instinct too, right? And that was part of my instinct. I think that's what you did.
Yeah.
And I like how you have the little mention the little stickers everywhere. I do a lot of yoga too. That is helpful. It's just amazing that your story that you're sharing. And for those that are listening, I'll have the links that she mentioned, the link, excuse me, that she mentioned in the description, and also the link for her book under the orange blossoms. And I really love your story, and you're very inspiring. And I hopefully this motivates people, inspires them as well to just slow down and find a way to deal with every day, right? It doesn't matter what level of trauma.
No, yep. And I really believe that we all innately have the tools to navigate and find what we need. It's within you. It's just a choice of taking the time to really sit there and start to unfold them. They just don't pop in your head. But you have that, and listen to other people.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Cindy. I appreciate your time.
Likewise, thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Bye, guys.